but maybe you can introduce your company and you can say what is on what kind of what is your sector.
Okay, so RTE is the French transmission electricity operator. It's one of it's the largest, I think, in Europe, and we have 100,000 kilometers of power line all over the country, and we shall do also the power line underwater with the offshore wind farm. So we will connect the electricity grid with the power down in ocean. So we have different challenge with biodiversity. So first we have the interaction with birds, with collision or electrocution, and we have also in a forested area where there is some trees. We have to manage the vegetation because electricity and the trees are not friends, can we say? So we have to cut the vegetation. So we are doing some geogriding, which is well, an industrial. Here we are.
Here we are. Yes.
So can you take the first one? So here. So that was I was explaining. So to prevent trees from touching the line, we are doing some geocutting, which is an effective solution. I don't know if you were there this morning in the red room. So I was explaining that. So next slide. So yes, I'm not going to repeat the threats of the globally endangered species, but we have been engaged in different institutions. So well, we can take the other slide. Yes, here. So you have all the history at RTE. So Jean-François was there, could more do the historical of this, because I arrived in 2017, so it's just at the end, and he was there much in the 80s. So you see, we have managed to do first a lot of association with NGOs to have a dialogue and to know how to do better management and good interaction with biodiversity. But then it's important to have some goals, as you were saying, and if you see that in 2017, we changed the engagement with the state, and we begin to work with Transport4Nature. So it was first the first commitment we have done, and then we have international commitment, and then it is Transport4Nature. So you can change the slide. So here I just present 3 commitments, but we have 10 commitments, much more. And so one of this is the Believe project that I shared this morning. And so we have to reach 2,300 hectares developed for biodiversity in 2024. And so you see it's smart, so it's specific, it's measurable because it's the number of hectares. It's achievable, so we have a politics to do it. and it's relevant for biodiversity, and we take action in the time. The second one, so this is
sorry.
The third commitment is about birds. So it's to develop and equip the line with some device. So that's an anti-electrocution device per year that are installed. And so our indicator is the number of kilometers that is equipped with anti-collision devices. And the action is to work with NGO and to reduce the collision. So that's one commitment. And another example is to do an indicator. So we have an indicator of an indicator. But so we have two objectives. It's to have a footprint indicator and a qualitative indicator of biodiversity in right-of-way. And so our indicator is the existence or not of this new indicator. And the action is to follow the effects of RTE's action for biodiversity, to compare and monitor change in biodiversity, and raise employee awareness. So this is 3 of our examples, so we have lots more. And so I think that it helps people working every day with biodiversity to reach goal and to say to the management that we have to reach those objectives, and because it's in front of the states also for entreprises engagées pour la nature, and so it pushes us to go forward.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Maybe, do we have access to the online speakers? Actually, Transport4Nature is this initiative, and we invite European transport to take commitments for biodiversity, and we have the support of the SEC, the Scientific Expert Committee, who is leading a working group, and Rory will explain how the Scientific and Expert Committee is helping companies to take commitments for biodiversity. Rory, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julie. And hello, everyone. Indeed, I'd best intentions to be present in Cluj, but due to work commitments, couldn't attend. So compensation will be virtual, and hopefully that will be adequate. As Julie mentioned, IENA is supporting Transport4Nature, and specifically I'm leading on developing effectively a biodiversity targets, indicators for the transport sector. And it's very timely because I'm going to just provide some context in terms of what's happening globally and why is there a push to do this, and why do we need to be moving progressively and actually moving at speed. Thank you. So as I mentioned, what's happening globally resonates and is resonating with increasing frequency in terms of the whole issue around biodiversity. We're all aware since 2019 with the publication of the IPBES report that biodiversity has breached the surface of greater awareness, public awareness, and indeed across private and public sector. So what we've seen is the emergence of something called the nature positive agenda. And in essence, it's an apex global goal. And I'd emphasize that it's a goal. It's not a target. It's not necessarily an indicator. And effectively what it means is that nature positive aspires to halt and reverse the loss of nature at a systems level. And that's measured from a baseline of 2020. I know we've passed that, of course. And then we achieve net positive by 2030 and full recovery by 2050. And really what's interesting here is that there's convergence and a consensus with a lot of the third sector and private sector organizations in terms of this global goal. And it's resonating deeply again through many sectors. And I'd add actually that because of the nature of of the goal, that there's a suite of targets and tools that will subsequently underpin it. One caveat, if you like, is that more broadly, the nature positive concept has not been accepted formally by the Convention on Biological Diversity, and whether it will cascade through the Global Biodiversity Framework is something that we'll potentially, well, hopefully see in Montreal in December. But it's a term that has got stickiness. It's here to stay, and irrespective whether it's formally adopted or not, I think it's an important to keep an eye very closely on it. Next slide, please, Julie. Of course, what it means really in reality is that nature and climate and society, we have to look at these components as equal points on a triangle. Traditionally, we've acknowledged that biodiversity or nature was part of the climate solution and they were interconnected agendas. But society is equally important in this equation. And crucially, the transport sector needs to fully understand its impacts and dependencies on nature in the context of climate change and society. So it needs to fully understand the impacts and dependencies on nature. And that's understanding what's material, but it's a shift towards what's often termed double materiality, in terms of equally the impact of nature on a corporation, but the corporation's impact on nature as well. So it is above and beyond ESG and social and corporate social reporting as well. Of course, we've got nature-based solutions within this context, and you'll appreciate there's a lot of noise in this area, and there's convergence occurring around definitions of what is a nature-based solution, what isn't. And I think probably the common theme for a nature-based solution is something along the lines of understanding that a nature-based solution should, ideally, the acid test, if you like, for a nature-based solution should be about endeavoring to replicate natural systems as close as possible. Next slide, please, Julie. So just to talk very briefly about the working group and our aspirations and the objectives. Undoubtedly, you'll hear a lot more about Transport4Nature, and I know there's other events planned through the conference, but Transport4Nature is effectively an alliance between companies, networks, public authorities, research scientists, etc. And has one ambition, and quite a laudable and important ambition, in terms of creating an international collective to restore biodiversity. And a key attribute of that is the underpinning support by transport CEOs. So the group seeks to effectively develop a standardized framework in which potential tools, data and metrics are nested. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And this is necessary to enable our Transport4Nature members to action their commitments. And clearly that's underpinned by specific goals informed by the best science, and indeed validated through robust monitoring and review mechanisms. Crucially, it's a collaborative approach. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's existing tools and metrics out there which we will signpost to and incorporate within the framework. We don't need to be starting out from scratch. And again, it feeds back into that material aspect. And clearly the final output is a guidance resource to support Transport4Nature in achieving their SMART criteria. The slide alludes to science-based targets for nature, and clearly that's a framework that's getting more traction as it develops. And again, you can see if you like, a variation on the mitigation hierarchy with the transform ring, which is effectively speaks to the global biodiversity framework in terms of the necessity for transformational change. Next slide, please, Julie. So very quickly, and it's important to note that unfortunately, because there's a lot of activity, a lot of energy, we're finding that sometimes when we talk about goals, frameworks, data, tools, and metrics, that they're used interchangeably and incorrectly so. So we need to be clear that we start with a framework, which is a guidance document, such as what we're developing for Transport4Nature members, and indeed TNFD, which has got a lot of traction lately. And then within that, we have tools nested. Many tools out there, as you'll appreciate, flowing to the metrics ultimately at the heart of it. And I'll speak very quickly about a metric that's prominent at the moment. And then obviously data is the common theme through all of that. Next slide, please, Julie. So very quickly, a metric. And I'm going to pick something topical, which is biodiversity net gain, and actually the transition to environmental net gain. So biodiversity net gain is become law in the UK. So it's been implemented through legislation, or will be in a matter of a few months. And effectively, it moves away from the do minimum harm narrative to providing an uplift, a net gain in biodiversity. So as you can see from the graphic midway down, it's providing an uplift in biodiversity effectively. But what's interesting is that it's only part of a journey, and the transition of that metric will be to environmental net gain, and that effectively superimposes a lens of natural capital, a lens of ecosystem services, so that potentially a developer, and this will apply to large infrastructure, nationally significant infrastructure at that they'll potentially also downstream have to provide an uplift in the services, the benefits to society that are delivered from the biodiversity net gain components. And on that note, I'd just like to finish and indeed thank you all for listening. Back to you, Julie.
Rory. So now we are going to listen Elisabeth from VINCI Autoroute, and she's also
I can see the slide from in my phone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this invitation. And so I will present very briefly VINCI Autoroute and our natural environment axis on our natural environment ambition to 2030. So we can go to next slide, please. So just in brief, what is VINCI Autoroute? It's over 40,000 kilometers of highway, so it's half of the French highway under concession. So it's 0.4% of French road length, but it's 12% of transport GHG emissions. What is important to know is that 2/3 of the infrastructure was built before the first main regulation. 10 past years, we had a lot of work to integrate on environment. Another point important that we are doing exploitation of maintenance of highway, and the end of the concession contract is by around 10 years. We have three main trades, three main expertise: road exploitation and maintenance, operation and maintenance, more precisely. We have also construction and planning of road and client relation on service areas. Can you go to next slide, please? This is just a very brief word on VINCI Autoroute environmental ambition to 2030. We have, no matter the figures, but what is important to know is, so we have organized in 3 axes, and one of these axes is preserving natural environment. And on all of these axes, we have commitments, a little bit like the person from RTE say. So we took commitment in 2019 on these 3 axes, and in 2021 we wanted to extend this ambition to upstream and downstream impact on carbon, but also on natural environment, and that's what I'm going to present today. Can you go to next slide, please? So I will briefly present you the preserving natural environment ambition for VINCI Autoroute. Can you go to next slide? So our main objective on operation and maintenance was to reduce water consumption, to also have zero PPP use on our of the land we operate. What is important to know is that we have 45,000 square hectares that we 45,000 hectares that we operate, and on these 40,000 hectares, almost 30 is greenland, so it's not roads. So we have so our ambition is to use zero PPP. We're almost there. We'll have very few use of PPP that can be mandatory or stuff like that. But we're still looking for having zero to 2030. And what we have extended this year is to formulate a global ambition on natural environment that is reduce pressure and restore biodiversity in our land. So can you please go to the next slide? So first, we built this environmental ambition on our expertise on development and construction of roads, since we have a mandatory regulation. We have obligation from law when we build new roads, that is avoid, reduce, compensate, or offset. And the last construction of highway that's been done in France, there's very few construction of highway, by the way, in France. It was 25 kilometers in Strasbourg, where we had a very important environmental integration issue. The big move from this construction site is that environmental avoid, reduce, and offset measure was the one that was piloting the planning. We had to do this measure before to secure the planning. So all the construction site was subordinated to the environmental measure, which was very important move for us. Can you go to the next slide? So when in 2021 we wanted to extend our natural and environment ambition into reduce and restore biodiversity based on the reference of science-based target network. So the first thing was to identify VINCI Autoroute contribution to public policies on biodiversity based on the IPBES categories. Then the second issue was to focus on local action expected by territories, what can VINCI Autoroute can do, and then this way we could set target on every different categories we thought was important for us. And then the last thing is we try to measure global contribution of this local action on biodiversity with an indicator that we're doing an experiment on it on MSR square kilometers. I'm just going to explain a little bit about this experimentation that we're doing to try to measure this global improvement of our pressure reduction on MSR square kilometer. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this, we're trying to do estimation of biodiversity loss and gain by combining LCA and local ecological studies that we're doing on site for construction or operation and maintenance. And these are the three scopes: direct operation, that is operation and maintenance; upstream for us is construction and client services; and downstream it's our client traffic. So, we did this. We try to quantify pressure locally, including available stories on a global corporate scale, that is our biodiversity footprint, and also on different sites. We experimented this on three sites: highway sections, service areas, and toll gates. And we try to quantify gains of our action with a KPI in MSA square kilometers. And I think I'm done. And so thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any questions, don't hesitate.
Yes, thank you very much, Elise. The question will come after the presentation of Cora, Cremezi. So we have seen the grids, the roads, and now we will see the railways. Cora.
So sorry. So SNCF are the French railways. And so it means infrastructure manager and also the railway operators, the station, well, all the activities. And I give you just a few numbers about French railways. So it means 32,000 kilometers of line, more than 100,000 hectares, and well, yes. You don't see it, but more than 300 stations and a lot of technical centers. And well, so many of right-of-ways, and so we have many interaction with a lot of ecosystems. So we have a lot of action to preserve biodiversity since a long time. First on the First on the infrastructure manager, where there is the most important impact, but also in the other activities. When the Action Nature framework has been launched in 2018, for us it was so logical to be involved, and it was a way to involve the CEOs, to involve all the activities in SNCF. And we decided not to have only the infrastructure manager involved, but really all the group. And it was also the opportunity, of course, to give more visibility about our subject, our opportunities, action, challenges, and to have on board, as I said, activities, but also our communication, well, all the group. And as we have in the steering committee, NGO, scientists, etc., it's also a way to reinforce our credibility of our actions. And then, of course, in 2021, we had to renew our commitments in Action for Nature, which became Action for Nature International. And it was for us the moment, let's say, to go further and to have a commitment in 3 main axes and to have a kind of policy, internal policies. Of course, all the action are not in it because we can't write all the action in these commitments. And also we have to be smart, and all the action can't be smart at the moment. But it really helps us to communicate internally and outside about our policy. First, the first axis is about governance, the dialogue, and awareness. And so the first thing we made is to add a governance. And now, of course, governance for all the group. And now all these commitments are discussed regularly in the steering group. And then Transport4Nature, of course. So when it has been launched, for us it's a sectoral framework. And it was, well, more specific, a way to show our specificities. And it was, of course, for us, how to say, normal, logical to be in. So just now I give you a few other examples of commitments. So the first one example was the governance. And then we have the second axis about mitigation pressure on biodiversity. And in that axis, we have, for example, this action about sustainable management and green areas, which help us to have on-board stations and technical industrial centers. So the objective is, in one way, to change the way we manage, of course, green areas in these places. And as we interact with, especially in station, we interact with clients, with transport authorities. It helps us to have on board and to show the importance to change the way to look at the green areas and to make them greener and better for biodiversity. And we had to do some communication for that, of course, and to explain why the station landscape changed a little. Oh, okay. I run. Okay. A second example is about reduce the use of synthetic pesticide, and we had now a new generation of weed-killing cranes, which help us to just put pesticide where we have herbs and plants. And first, we stopped to use glyphosate since 2021, and it's a second step to go further and to reduce the quantity of product we use. And now we use a mix based on biocontrol products. And about the third axis, about the third axis, so it's about building the knowledge basis and it helps us to anticipate expectation and needs. And we have some example that I won't say in details because we don't have time. So one about develop a biodiversity footprint, and the other with different research projects, and you can hear some of them on Thursday, I think, and Friday. Thank you.
So we have 15 seconds to ask questions. So the floor is yours. Sorry for that. Do you have a question? Yes, thank you, Andreas.
Thank you very much for your presentations. I'd like to ask you two questions. It will not take 15 seconds to ask, but it will take longer to answer. So the first question is, why do you think that Transport4Nature or Act for Nature is relevant and important for you, for your company? So what's the reason to join? And the second question is, what is your vision about biodiversity and your company? So how do you think biodiversity will be integrated in the future? Not only mitigating, I'm thinking about the vision. So this is how we want to have our railways or electric grids or motorways or so in the future.
So Elise, this question is also for you, if you can hear us. But if you want to answer, Cora or Lisa, or maybe Jean-François, who is here.
Well, so why join Act for Nature, and is it important or not? Yes, it's important because we show what we do, and we, of course, our commitments and the result of our commitments are public. And as I said, it's a part of credibility and valorization of what we do. And it's a way also to show that, of course, we have impact and we try to manage them and to be better. And we have also, well, I should say negative impact, but we have also positive impact, and we want also to show that. And well, so that for the first part, briefly. And well, where we go? Hopefully, the better balance between necessary industrial way of doing the thing and preservation, biodiversity. It's what we would like, and we try to do that. But well, we have things to do for that. Of course, it's not now, not completely now.
There's one question here.
Yes, maybe you can answer if you want.
Yes, I was thinking also that the Act for Nature have been signed by the president of RTE, and all those signatures are very important because it shows that in the the higher top of the society, this has been signed, and so I think that I don't find a word, but it's showing something. And actually, I'm not doing the biodiversity politics at RTE. I'm piloting the R&D research and development. But I think that the best we can do is that we are doing a good interaction with biodiversity, and that we care about it. So we care about the security of the infrastructure, we care about the security of biodiversity, and we learn also to cohabiter, to coexistence. We don't not totally need to be together, but a first step is coexistence, that we know that they are there and we share the place and we try to do the best first, and then we see, but that's first step.
Other question?
Yes,
Please.
thank you. I was just wondering, how do you actually, once the companies have shown their willingness to be part of the Transport4Nature network, how do you follow the progress, and do you have some sort of KPIs, key performance indicators, to find out that whether they have achieved all the objectives that they have defined at the beginning, or how do you follow up on that?
How it works. Companies take commitments and propose their commitments, submit their commitments to our steering committee. Our steering committee is composed of scientists, of NGOs, and of companies. And together they discuss about the commitments. If the commitments, so the commitment should be SMART, specific, measurable, and so on. After that, when the commitments are approved by the steering committee, every 2 years, at the IUCN Congress, at the IENE Congress, they have to report. Now we don't have the, how can I say, we don't have the budget to follow up all these commitments because it's very expensive. But the company engaged their responsibility and their name thanks to the CEO signature. So it's, and we hope that NGOs, so that is what is very important for us to involve NGOs, because we show what type of commitments companies took. So this is the process. It's not a perfect process, but this is the process. We have indicators, we have a steering committee, and we have reporting every 2 years.
Just if you want to it's not Transport4Nature, but Action4Nature, but of course it's more or less the same framework, let's say. And if you want to see how it works, you can see their website. And we make, all the companies made the reporting on their first commitments in 2020, and you can see everything on the website.
Another thing is that, for example, we had a conversation with ENGIE. ENGIE is a very also important French company, and they want us to help us to take commitment not only in Europe, but also outside Europe, because they have a lot of companies outside in the south of America. So we will try to see how we can spread the good I mean, the good method outside Europe too. Yeah. 5.
Another question?
And five big ones. And we hope, so it's, but all these companies are mostly French. We have one company from Portugal, and we hope that we can also involve other European companies. It's very important for us to spread this initiative, not only in Europe, but also in Sweden, in Spain, and so on. So if you are interested, please come and join. Do you have other question? Maybe for companies or for Rory?
Maybe one remark. On Thursday, we will have a workshop on the initiative Transport4Nature and the framework nature-based solution that helps the company to make commitments. How the concept of nature-based solution is used in the companies. And we will have also Rory presenting and discussing. Yes.
I can add something for your question. I think public acceptance is very important for our company, especially perhaps for electricity, because our network is not in the places we are not property. So we are obliged to have acceptance of all the property, but also the NGO. And during a long time, it was very difficult to cohabit. And we know we have, with electric transition, a lot of grid to expand. And it's important to have this acceptance to do our work. And I think this kind of commitment is a part of the acceptance.
And we could add that when we propose new commitments to the steering committee, so where you have scientists, NGO, etc., exchange are really helpful to have the best commitment we can.
The partnership we make before this kind of commitment, it was for the same reason, because the partnership with NGO, with park, natural park, and so on, it is to have a good relationship with all these partners.
Is it all? So if you want more information on Transport4Nature, you can contact us, Charlotte, me, and Jean-François also. And we will be very happy and to give you information. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lisa, and Cora, and Rory, and Elisabeth.
Thank you.